focus on what truly matters. And I encourage anyone to write this down, right? Because we're in our head, we're in our head, we're in our head. But when you write it down on paper, it helps so much. So I think if you even just pick three things right now that truly matter to you, when you're stuck with making a decision, when you notice that you're on that hamster wheel of just going replaying, a moment in your head, go back to those three things that matter to you the most and focus, every decision that you make and every thought, just try to focus around those three things. I think that's really helpful.
Hey queens, yeah, you know who you are. God, come on, go ahead and put that crown on your head. Now tilt a little to the left, now a little to the right. Perfect. Now let's get to work, because we know you got big goals and you got big dreams and not afraid to let them know. Why? Because you step into your purpose, you speak out on your faith, and you shift up in your journey, because you a boss. Welcome to the podcast Drop the Expire and Act with your host Veli of QueenBayGoals.com, reminding you that you are a queen before anything else. It's your life and your goals. Make it royal. All right, y'all. Go ahead and work that crown.
So we're starting this episode a little differently. We're going to start with a story. It was a Friday night, and I sat on the couch watching my then 1-year-old play with his toys. Then my phone goes off. You have an interview in 1 hour. I'm like, an interview in an hour? I just wrapped up 3 interviews last week. Did I miss something? And that's when it hit me. Yes, you have 1 interview left. She had scheduled her interview out furthest on the calendar, and I was supposed to send her a reminder at the beginning of the week. I was supposed to send her the Zoom link. I was supposed to do all the things, and I hadn't done any of it. And now I'm in panic mode in my head, right? Do I reschedule the meeting? Because now I'm home alone with my son. My husband left the house. There's nobody to watch him. Like, what am I going to do? And then if I send her a meeting or a message saying, let's reschedule it, she's going to be like, oh gosh, this woman is still unprofessional. First of all, she hasn't sent me the meeting link. She hasn't told me, what's going to happen during the interview. Like, that's just completely unprofessional. And all this stuff is going through my head, right? And a half an hour passes. It's 7:30. I spent 30 minutes overthinking it. And I'm like, you know what? Let me call my mom. So just so you know, my mom doesn't live in Georgia. She just happened to be visiting at the time. And she was over at her sister's. And I'm like, oh, I can get her to come watch my son. And he's only ever been around her like on Zoom chat, or when she first came and she visited, so he's not used to being around her. So I'm like, you know what, we're gonna make it work, we're gonna make it do what it do. I sent a message to, now it's after 7:30 now, right? I've sent a message to the guests saying, you know what, I'm gonna be about 10 minutes late joining the call, but we are starting the call. I sent her the meeting link, and lo and behold, this is the interview that you are about to listen to. So imagine if I had just continued to overthink all the things, right? If I had, said, you know what, I'm not going to decide anything. I'm just going to think, okay, I'm either going to reschedule it or I'm going to do it at another time. Like, imagine if I had stayed stuck in my head that entire time, you would not have this episode that you are listening to tonight or today. Just FYI, a lot of times we spend overthinking things in our own minds, and the solution is like right there in front of us. Because when my mom came over to watch my son, guess what? He didn't even pay me no mind when I went upstairs. He didn't even know I was gone for the 30 minutes that I did the interview, right? To him, he was just downstairs playing. He didn't even see me slip away. So imagine if I had not decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the interview like I said I was. And I said, I just overthought the whole thing, like he was going to go crazy while he was downstairs with my mom, right? None of that happened. So we need to, a lot of times, step out of our own heads and think about solutions versus overthinking like every single situation. All right, so that's the end of the story. Now you can get straight into the podcast.
All right, so welcome Queen Babes to another episode of the Drop the Aspiring Act podcast. Today we are talking to entrepreneur Tarah Maes, who is I gotta get it right, a former overthinker turned creative thinker. So let's get into this. So what is a overthinker? Because you said you're a personal overthinker. So what is that?
Oh man, for years, yeah. Overthinking, it's where you spend so much time in your head and you just ruminate on thoughts. And most of the time it's negative thoughts, right? It's nothing that brings us any joy to our day-to-day life. It's fixating on something. It can also lead to just being a people pleaser because you start to just think about what everyone wants to hear. So you're just over analyzing everything. And the biggest way I can sum it up is that you're just living in your head in this negative bubble in your head.
Right. So can you give us a bit about your background and how you think you even got into being an overthinker?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So I honestly remember just telling myself, like, as I was growing up, like I would just say, yeah, I'm an overthinker. I'm an overthinker.
So you put it in your head.
Yes, absolutely. And it was just like a matter of fact, like that's just what it is, like my hair is brown and I'm an overthinker. Like that's just, so I struggled with it for years, but I never really sat down and was like, I'm going to do something about it, And then honestly, I was listening to another podcast and they're like, what are you really good at? And I was like, sarcastically in my head, I said, I'm an overthinker. You know what? I'm really good at overthinking. So, and then it just kind of was like, well, why don't I do something about it? And why don't I help other people too?
Yeah. So I love your story because in your intake form, you said you were aspiring for 10 years before you said, okay, I'm not going to be an overthinker anymore. So tell us a little bit about what made you decide, okay, 10 years is up, I'm done.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's just been like in my blood, but I never knew what it was. And I just was so, I overthought and I was overthinking about what it was, like, what can it be? What can it be? And I think I just closed myself off to any opportunities. So I was going through some old journals that I had in high school. And one was, where are you going to be in 10 years? And it said, I'm going to own my own business. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm going to own my own business. And then I was like, that's funny because it's literally 10 years to the date. And here I am, and I still am saying the same thing. So anyway, that's, when I just was like, I was like, okay, I'm good at overthinking. I want my own business. And I just
merged the two.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business now. So how do you help people to get out of their overthinking phase and into being creative?
Yeah, so I realized that I've always been really passionate about creativity and art, but I mean it more than just painting or drawing. I think just using your imagination. So I knew that I had that in my back pocket. And then I started to realize that, like, man, being an overthinker and being a creative thinker, like those things go hand in hand. Like the ability to think for a long period of time, that's an overthinker, but it's also a creative thinker. And so I was like, you can make this switch, like an overthinker says, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? But a creative thinker can say, well, what if it goes right?
Right.
And so you can start thinking, it's just, almost like a positive to or negative to positive thinking. It's just that kind of a switch. And so I work one-on-one with people doing some coaching, but group coaching as well. And then I have my newsletter that I'm constantly sending out tips and advice, and I'm just trying to build this community so that we can all be in this together because I know I'm not the only one. So yeah, that's just a little bit of how I'm helping.
So what would you say to the overthinker who is still in their head and they need a bit of advice? Like what would you tell them to get them out of their own heads?
I think the biggest thing is trying to focus on what truly matters. And I encourage anyone to write this down, right? Because we're in our head, we're in our head, we're in our head. But when you write it down on paper, it helps so much. So I think if you even just pick 3 things right now that truly matter to you, and it could be family, it can be anything. But then kind of when you're stuck with making a decision, um, when you notice that you're on that hamster wheel of just going replaying, a moment in your head, go back to those 3 things that matter to you the most, and just focus. Every decision that you make and every thought, just try to focus around those 3 things. I think that's really helpful.
So do you want to share with us your 3 things? What are the 3 things that gets you to stop going back to overthinking?
Oh, yes, that's good. So my things are family, doing things from a place of love,
I love that.
and what I like to call, being creative, but the way that I like to phrase it is thinking with my hands. So I realize that I have to take these moments of my day or my week to do something active with my hands, because that helps me get out of my head so much. So I have to nurture that creativity in me, and yeah, again, family means so much to me. That's just what keeps me grounded and centered. And then if I just think about doing everything with love, like, am I doing this based off of love or is it fear? That helps me, gives me a direction.
I love it. So can you give us a little bit more of a breakdown of your course? So for the overthinkers out there who are looking for a community to come and join so we can get into our creativity and stop overthinking, tell us a little bit about the course that you have for them.
Absolutely. So I think that everyone has this idea, and it could be a life that they want for themselves, but there's kind of this gap. There is this gap between having your idea and actually taking action to it. Like this is, action that feels right and it actually keeps the momentum going forward. Like, I think there's this huge gap. And in that gap is where you overthink, where you come up with your best excuses to tell yourself. So over the 5 weeks, we just get really grounded in who you are. Okay. So we start with understanding yourself, getting clear on what you want. And then as the weeks go on, we just kind of get clear on why you want what you do, right? So we have all these creative exercises because we say, oh, I want my own business, or I want the perfect relationship, but we don't even know why exactly, right? So we have to get to that deep understanding. So we have activities that go over that. And then we talk about the day-to-day, right? I think we focus so much in the future, but I break it down and like, how can we focus day-to-day in managing our goals and taking a little step forward, even if that step doesn't bring us like a physical result, you're still making progress. Mm-hmm. So how can we focus on it day to day? And then the last week wraps up with just almost surrendering, right? Because we have momentum going forward, but then there's this moment where we have to take a step back, right? And then we'll fall in the same circle again of just being stuck in our head. So we have to just release and surrender and, be at peace and know that we're taking action, but don't be so blinded and so narrow-minded. And yeah, so it just kind of takes you full circle from getting your idea and actually getting that momentum and getting out there and living the life that you want for yourself.
And you're building a community around you with women that are also the same, like-minded.
Oh, yes. Yep. We need us all together.
Right. I love that. So can you tell us, where can our guests find your course and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. So Tarah Maes is my Instagram and my website. So tarahmaes.com and at Tarah Maes on Instagram is where you can find it all.
All right. And I will include all the links, you guys, so you don't have to go searching. Just look in the description because you'll have all the links. So we always close out our podcast with a quote. And this time, the guests are given a quote for this season. And Tarah said, "The journey is the destination," by Dan Eldon. So tell us why you chose that quote.
Yeah. So again, it kind of just goes back to how we get so focused on tomorrow, and I'm not going to be happy until I have this thing. Once I finish school, then I'll be happy. Once I have the relationship, I'll be happy. And it never is that way. And so you have to focus on what you love right now about yourself, about your life. And so find the love for the journey, because the journey is the destination. It really is. So that's what I live by every day, for
Oh
sure.
God, I love it. Do you have it tattooed? Because we had like 2 guests that had their quotes tattooed. So I just got to ask the question.
I have very heavily considered it, but I do not have it as of yet. So.
Okay, so that's 2 out of 3. All right, you guys. So thank you for listening to the Drop the Aspire and Act podcast. We have some more great guests coming up. So you guys, make sure you go to Tarah's website and check it out, especially if you're an overthinker and you're ready to get out of your own head, get out of your own way, and get into the creativity that you were meant for. All right, you guys. So thank you for coming and talking to me today, Tarah.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. Thank you.
No problem. All right, you guys. So make sure you come back for the next episode. You have been listening to another episode of Drop the Aspiring Act. If you're looking for more information on this podcast and other episodes, please visit queenbaegoals.com. That's QueenBaeGoals.com. All right, y'all. I'll see you in the next podcast.